The scene is set in Opera House. This very moments, slim moments after the unfortunate death of Ariadne Quinn, and Juan Carlos pulls the remainings uh, decomposing body of Miss Quinn onto shore as he sees the prince's ghouls talking to any people that are standing by, and looks out to Joshua as he's making his way swimming towards him as well.
Joshua, upon seeing this, is simply going to rub the back of his neck, look at Juan Carlos. Oh, holy shit. Juan, what happened?
Kind of lost for words and putting the body aside, kind of putting it where it's still covered. Me mordió. She bit me.
Uh, did you have control of the situation? Was your life in danger? I mean, the prince is not going to be happy about this.
Eh, I am not stupid. I understand this as he gets up and wipes himself down.
Joshua's just going to take a deep sigh and be looking around. Maybe we should try to get a hold of Mr. Crowley. He might have something to say about this.
Uh, he takes out his phone, all wet and damaged, and just breaks it and throws it into the bay.
Josh will pull out his ancient Nokia phone, which will not be damaged by water damage. He
I will
manually clicks the buttons and actually is able to get the call out.
ring, 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 ring.
The phone rings for a bit. You don't get an immediate reply after about 3 rings. You hear the sound of the BMW pulling up. If the sound carries inside through the doors, you'll hear the engine revving. And if you didn't hear it through there, you will certainly hear it as Jacob picks up in the background. So if you are hearing it, it may clue you into the fact that he's actually there. But if you don't, Jacob will just say, yes?
Joshua's going to turn around and probably see the BMW, have a very kind of grimace on his face. You might want to come out here. We'll talk. Immediately puts the phone down and depresses the antenna into the phone.
I have to reactivate that. This. Jacob will
Carlos would go inside and grab a trash bag. One found a trash bag and is gonna head back and start putting what's left inside. It would be hopefully an industrial sized one since they have dumpsters and stuff. I'm assuming for their things. And puts the rest of the body in there, and just looks at Joshua as he ends the call.
Mm. One. I apologize, friend. If I had reached you sooner, perhaps I could have talked the two of you down.
I do not blame you, Senor Smith. I was merely incapable of having her trust us.
Well, perhaps there's some damage control that can be done here. I can't see how, but there are wiser kindred in the city, and I'm hoping that upon Mr. Crowley's arrival, he could salvage something from this.
Um, he looks beyond you and then like just lifts his hands up and points at across the bay. Using his auspex, he would be able to keen in, not as like it was clear as day, but notices that there are people. We shall see if that will be as quickly done as this error was done. We must protect the masquerade.
Of course, let's get this body out of sight, and uh, once Mr. Crowley arrives, I suggest we get a hold of the Prince post haste.
See,
As if the words themselves would have summoned him. Time they have made their way back inside, Jacob will have come around to the upper house with all of the rockets. It's not difficult to see that something's going on over there. Are you guys having trouble hearing me?
A little bit. I'm getting the gist, though.
yeah,
Alright, is that any better?
a little bit. Go.
As if on cue, by the time you all have head inside, Jake will have arrived. He'd ridden his bike over to the Opera House, so he would have just been inside the direction that he normally would have to see. Direction he normally would have gone to see Arne and the performers in the back. So if you all went in through the back doors, you will either go in with Jacob or he will come in as you're inside with the corpse.
I'm assuming that we'll probably be inside with the corpse once Jacob arrives, huddled around it.
Is the corpse easily visible? Right there, you all come.
Uh, sorry, say again?
I was asking, is the corpse easily visible, or is it...
It's in a trash bag.
That is so much better.
Okay.
Stay wherever you are.
Okay, so it's in a trash bag. Not
You
necessarily,
would
just
see
out
the
there.
you would see the Princess Ghouls talking to people and stuff like that. Walking around the
Cleaning
premises.
up the mess. Yes.
Jacob, you're muted.
Jacob will. Sorry about that. Jacob will turn to the two of them. It's not exactly what he expected to see. You'd said that he needed to meet you all soon, but you didn't say where you were. So, looking between Juan Carlos and Joshua, he's going to frown and ask, is Ariadne here?
She is right there. Mi pirmatorio. As he points to the bag.
Joshua, being a little bit of an instigator, we'll also say. Well, mostly. I mean, except for whatever might be floating in the bay right now. Immediately.
Jacob is going to frown, turn over, and move towards the bag. He's going to undo it and look inside, since he's assuming that he's going to see a torpor and perhaps dismembered body within. When he sees the corpse, a very obviously decaying Ariadne, he will glare at the bag. No, he won't glare. He'll snarl. He will spin around and I might as well roll the dice for this one. He's not using Dread Gaze, but I'm just gonna roll the Intimidation to see how, if he even manages to look threatening at this point to the two. He looks pretty damn threatening. He gets the anger across rather well as he snarls to them. What did this?
Only one success on my courage roll. I look pretty not well at the intimidation, and she resisted, and it did not go as planned.
Joshua has one success. He's going to be nervous as well and simply look to his Primogen and things have become complicated.
Complicated. Complicated does not begin to describe what I'm looking at here. Complicated is you topered her when she wanted to leave. You laid hands on her because you were supposed to bring her in. I am assuming from the fact that I know nothing about this and therefore I'm not involved that you're bringing her to Prince Stanhope.
Si, senor.
And did he give you permission to slay her?
He hangs his head. Pretty much feeling like he failed miserably, even though during the act he felt alright about it. Everything was allowed until the point of destruction.
Josh will step in and try to defend his clansmate a little bit. And you see the injuries on Mr. Carlos. He was acting in self-defense, I believe.
In self-defense, of course. And Jacob will say, show me.
He lifts up his hands, rather his arms, where the bite tore into him and did the one level of ag. And you see it pretty much, he hasn't healed it or anything since he's low on blood and definitely needs to feed soon. But it's pretty much bleeding profusely and you can see almost bone.
Jacob will take the hand in his hand. He'll turn it over so that he can look over the entire injury down to the bone. He looks calm again. Ah, so she bit you.
Si, senor. It was in the middle of the ocean there. Oh, not ocean. In the middle of the bay there. I did not want to fail the prince, but I did not want to die this night either.
Jacob is going to reach down into his pocket, the pocket of the coat that he's wearing, that same coat that people always see him with when he rides out on his bike. He's going to pull out a wooden stake. You see this? This is how you bring somebody in when they are resisting.
Unfortunately, senor, they don't sell those. I do not know where to procure one.
Jacob is speechless. Jacob is utterly, completely speechless. He just walks over to Ariadne's corpse, runs a hand across her head. Well, the skull, anyway. The flesh has aged the few years that it should have to match if she'd been in the earth all this time. Away from the skull, the hair has no luster to it. It's nothing but string attached to barely clinging rubbery material. Once he's done, you see him mumbling. Does anybody know Arabic, perchance?
No.
Okay.
I
Then
don't.
none of your characters know what he says.
No, Joshua wouldn't have a clue.
And he just mumbles a soft old prayer. Before turning back around to Juan Carlos and Joshua, you had best take this to the prince and hope that there was no information he may have wanted out of her, as I did when I was coming to see her this night.
Joshua will slowly turn and look to Juan Carlos, and then look back to Mr. Crowley, clearly contemplating something, and then he's going to very cordially kind of put on a brave face and look to Mr. Crowley. Well, then I suppose there's no delaying the nibble, Mr. Carlos. Shall I?
See, he kind of looks disheveled, and he looks like after the speech Senor Crawley gave him, he doesn't know like where he's at, too much of what to do, that type of thing.
Out across the bay, the suited, a little bedraggled Jeffrey Darling approaches the kindred, a little flustered, red in the cheeks. He sees Crowley and immediately sort of nods his head in reverence. Apologies, gentlemen. I do not mean to interrupt, but I believe this is not an appropriate place for conversation.
Did you manage to keep the people at bay, or?
I have done all I can here. The others will mitigate damage, but I fear that we may have been a little too late. But this is not completely unsalvageable. We will have to see how the kind react. I have a car waiting if you gentlemen would care to accompany me.
Lead on, as Juan looks very, very eager to get to go see the prince immediately.
Joshua will begin to wring out his Stetson hat, again silently cursing and wishing that he hadn't read the tux for the opera like he had originally planned.
Excuse me, gentlemen. And Jeffrey is going to roll his manipulation and Stanhope's influence in medical to get an ambulance. So it looks pretty legit. Yeah, he can call an ambulance. With the help of Von Carlos, the ambulance truck arrives, loading the body of Miss Quinn within it. The employees are, well, they're on staff. We'll make sure the Ventru will speak with them. And they shoot off to St. Mary's Hospital. Whereupon he will forward his message to the awaiting kindred at the casino so everyone can meet up.
Are we meeting at the hospital or are we meeting at the...
Well, I'm not sure whether it will be best, because an ambulance heading to the casino might be a little bizarre, but the hospital certainly things can deal with.
Yeah.
Stop making me laugh, Dylan.
At that moment, Jacob's phone is going to ring. He's going to, of course, he'll have nodded to Jeffrey steps back to look at the number, and a bit perplexed that the sees will, instead of answering it, simply go to voicemail, but not to the others. I'm afraid I must be on my way and deal with other matters of my station, apparently. But should the prince need me for anything, he knows how to reach me. And he will, after giving a brief look towards Joshua and Juan Carlos, and then the departing ambulance, he'll head out, and the noise of his bike can be heard heralding his departure.
Okay, we will flash the scene forward to St. Mary's Hospital. The prince, along with the two guests, which he called forth to meet at the casino, have gone there post-haste. As soon as he received the report from Jeffrey, the prince is not in a good mood. Not in a good mood entirely. He is actually quite angry. But things have to be done, and the masquerade must be kept. So, very briefly, just for admin approval, I will roll my manipulation and influence to make sure that, for all the purposes of records, this corpse was a poor young woman found in the bay who had accidentally, on a late night out, got drunk and froze to death in the river. Hence the screaming, hence the many men gathered around the bay, and with the right amount of influence, the medical reports will be released. And the body will be incinerated. Oh, thank Christ, I succeeded this roll. So, yes.
Only slightly.
Only slight. 2 successes, so cursory glance looks fine. Unless people are digging into it, then it should be enough for the mortals. However, we will wait on the Toreador to arrive. Mr. Brehon and Mr. Miles are in the medical director's office, which John often uses.
Well, Brehon is there, but he's in a tracksuit from Gleason's gym. He came so quickly he didn't even really get dressed. Trying to get there.
Are Sid Miles and Laird aware of what happened? Or are they just standing by?
You've just arrived. I will catch you up, Mr. Miles. Apologies for not being able to clarify further, he says, holding up his phone. I was waiting for the report. I called you in because I received information that Miss Ariadne Quinn had been in conversations and is an informant of Apollo of Corinth.
There's utter shock on Laird's face for like a moment, and then he composes himself, and he looks stoic almost and cold, but he's paying attention to you intently.
Mr. Miles, if you are unaware, Apollo of Corinth is a Sabbat Priscus of Clan La Sombra that has been a thorn in this city-side for quite some time.
If I remember correctly, has killed several Bruja.
Just so. Also, the Sabbat killed many of our kind during their little incursion, including one of our most veritable elders. This news was from a suspicious source, but any suspicion of this sort of activity requires immediate attention, and so I called upon Mr. Von Carlos to gather as many Camarilla kindred as he could to bring Miss Quinn to me for questioning. It appears that something has gone awry. I don't want to spoil the juicy details. I'm sure they'll be able to tell us all themselves. And this, as you can see, he says as he notices all the paperwork and the amount of calls he's had to do and the various amount of people he's had to meet, shake hands with, and subtly dominate to try and make sure that everything's in order, is my cleanup operation. The phone rings.
Do you need our assistance with anything, sir?
Well, I called you in originally in case Miss Quinn was, well, a little resistant or a little hesitant to give us the information. It seems that that is not the case. I apologize for wasting your time, gentlemen, but I suspect that this news should spread quickly. So, since I have wasted your time, you may be witness to the wonderful story that I'm sure our Toreador brethren will be regaling us with. Unless you have more pressing things to do, then you may leave. It is
no, sir. But I will add that on the way over to meet you, High Call stopped by just right as I was waking. He has thrown his support behind the treaty. And he inclines his head.
Will a representative from Clan Malkavian be arriving tomorrow?
He hands you a USB. He instructed us to give this, or copies of this, to all the Primogen and Harpies. He's wanting you to play this video, but he apologized for not being able to make it. But Miss Maitland could come in absentia as a named whip to present the video for the day, since he has no one else to be whip, essentially, at the moment.
Yes, Miss Maitland's presence will be required. I'm sure many of the Primogen will be eager to hear about the conclusion of this asylum business. Ah, he says as his phone starts to buzz. I believe that's our gentleman now. And the prince, in mock jovial nature, will sit back on the chair with his fingers steepled, eager and eyes blaring at the door, waiting for the entrance of the Toreador.
And as he does, a cold breeze breaks into the hospital as he
Glad I wore my sweats.
pushes open both doors, so Joshua doesn't even have to hold anything. Proceeds on and going into the room in which he sees the prince sitting mockingly, excited, and notices there's two others nearby, but he doesn't recognize them at first. As he gets closer, he notices Laird, but doesn't. Oh, wait, he does know the second person. And he enters the room. Nippity-sippy.
Joshua follows closely behind Juan Carlos. He's going to keep his eyes averted and staring mostly down at the floor. And upon getting close, he's going to give a very low and courteous bow before settling himself down.
Gentlemen, please have a seat. We're all very eager to hear of today's activities. Please, start from early last night, when you left the casino, Mr. Carlos, he says, trailing a hand on the desk, and he'll move around and he'll hop up on the desk and lean forward, so he's a little bit uncomfortably close.
One thinks back, and as I recall, I left and I went straight to the opera house, as I said. This was at, let's say, 2 or 3, and then I called, well, Miss Quinn didn't want to leave immediately, and she requested that she have someone else come pick her up, Senor Cole, Sheriff Cole, and I abided because I did not have anything to forcibly remove her from the premises, as I've told you over the phone. And once I called you and did that, I went back and reminded her not to leave, as you said to do. And that was that. I come back the next morning and I see your beloved ghoul on his face near the bay, and Miss Quinn jumped into said bay. He looks at you as you nod and do all that, and I jumped in after her. I managed to eventually grab her, and so on and so forth. She is dead.
How did she die?
2 bite wounds to her neck.
By your hand?
By my teeth, mi principe.
It's a figure of speech, Mr. Carlos. Now, he says, trying to... I'm going to roll up self-control because he is furious. Ah, I'm a venture, of course I'm good. So, if this was all going to play out again, where would you say your many mistakes lied?
If I'm speaking frank, I should have never came to this city. Besides that, I'm glad you like it. Besides that, possibly giving her the opportunity to trust us and come willingly. I should have had a stake, but unfortunately, I do not know where to get one, and making one was not on the agenda with what she had as I looked around her beautiful opera house. Another mistake was probably waiting until the next night instead of making the sheriff appear instead of giving him a chance. I also should have probably brought people with me. So plenty of things.
Plenty of things.
Plenty of things.
Mr. Miles, would you be so kind as to educate Mr. Juan Carlos on how to make a steak?
This is usually very relaxed, very philosophical, but at this time he is taking a very soldier's posture, arms folded behind his back, back straight, eyes forward, and is just gritting his teeth the entire time. Break off a table leg and sharpen it against someone's skull if necessary.
Do you not have furniture in your haven? Are you so destitute that you cannot go to the closest second-hand or thrift store and buy yourself a chair? Or in the DIY store and buy yourself a 2x4?
I'm sure you know, Principe, that all stores are closed at that late hour.
Actually, there is Home Depot, which runs pretty late, my friend.
Home Depot runs until 2, at least in the States here. They don't close at 3.
Prince will get up, grab one of the chairs, and smash it against the table. And just like, steaks! They're everywhere!
Roll courage. And I'm okay. I'm okay. Successes.
Sid's actually going to look at the prince and not look him in the eye and look kind of down at his feet and hold his hand out as if to take one.
The prince will toss it and then turn around. Mr. Carlos, like, trying to not look at you because you just looking at you makes him furious. Miss Quinn was under suspicion of being a Sabbat infiltrator, selling information of our city, putting every single kindred of this city's lives at risk. And you thought you'd give her the courtesy of choosing who brings her to me, that she may request the sheriff to chauffeur her over, that she is allowed to give them the privilege, that she may choose when she can speak to me? A know-nothing, independent, no-status neonate, barely beyond a fledgling. And you thought you'd persuade her to come willingly. She was the enemy, Von Carlos. You are lucky to be alive.
Looks down at his arm. Looks back at you and... Si, senor.
In the time in which you left her to her own devices, did you keep an eye on her? Do you know if she made any calls, sent any emails? Hell, did she send a carrier pigeon?
I only stayed around an hour before the sunrise.
So what you're telling me, Mr. Carlos, is the Sabbat could very well know absolutely everything about this city, that she has done her duty to her sect, while you gave her the courtesy of manners.
It is the way I was raised. Nevertheless, I do see my errors. What will you do? I am at your disposal.
And what of you, Smith? Why are you here?
Joshua is not going to make eye contact. His eyes will be fixed firmly upon the desk in front of him. My prince, I was called upon Mr. Juan Carlos to help in the apprehension. I believed that we were to enter into this opera house, and, well, to not raise any suspicion, I had rented a tuxedo to blend in with Kine. Miss Quinn had run, and I believe that your men were in pursuit of her. I jumped in after them, attempting to capture Miss Quinn, but unfortunately I got tangled up in some seaweed. And by the time I was able to free myself and get to the surface, you see what has happened.
At the mention of being tangled up in seaweed, Laird actually has to stifle a laugh before it starts. Just so I'm gonna roll self-control. That's okay. Let's see. I get 5 dice though for that. And yes, I catch myself as that is happening, and I clearly cover my mouth sort of before I let it laugh out.
Josh was clearly more embarrassed than anything else.
I really should make Sid roll self-control here. That's not.
We're all waiting, Mr. Miles.
Alright, that's 2 successes. Sid, his hands clench up for a moment, like he really wants to lash out at something, and then he puts his hands down by his side and stands at attention.
The only saving grace you two have, and why you will be seeing another night, is that Miss Quinn has been dealt with. Her guilt is obvious that she ran, and she can no longer betray us. However, any information she has given is now a secret. We must assume that the Sabbat know everything. And any possible link we have to her and Apollo probably dies with her.
At that, raises a finger, looking to the prince to interject if he can.
Now is not the time to interject while I'm speaking, Mr. Brehon.
I'm sorry, sir.
Unless you want my ire. You have something to say?
Yes.
Well,
Won't there be records at her opera house or club, billing? Can't we track that down and eventually get to her phone company? Maybe phone records would help if we go with that route.
Mr. Brehon, and he says, whipping off his glasses, pulling out from the drawer a manner of test tubes. Eat glass. One. What's your willpower?
It's 7.
Oh, well, only one. He doesn't get to dominate you because that would... Well, it's a harmful action, but he's certainly looking at you expectantly.
At 1, he wouldn't harm himself. He wouldn't do that.
No. He's not dominated you, but he's looking like like he's expecting you to.
He just shuts up at that and he leans back. He doesn't say anything else.
Now, before we get to the matter of how we're going to control this, I have to decide what to do with the two of you.
Principe, I humbly request that all the burden be put on me. Joshua, he is not to blame for my mistakes.
No, unfortunately, Joshua's own ineptitude has saved him from punishment.
Again, at the mention of what to do with him, Sid holds out his hand open as if to receive something.
Mr. Carlos.
So not in front of the prince, but to the side.
Mr. Carlos. As much as Mr. Miles is itching to produce punishment, you will be publicly flogged at the next Elysium. Get out of my office.
Juan immediately gets up and starts heading out, not saying one word further.
Joshua,
And the cold breeze leaves the room.
Joshua will very quietly stand and again courteously bow towards his prince. Again, keeping his gaze towards the floor and very quietly follows behind.
The door shuts. Gentlemen. Mr. Preon, you know I appreciate your input, but when I say be quiet, you be quiet.
I understand.
I will make you eat glass.
I understand. My apologies.
You were saying?
I was just saying, Sorry, I tend to think out loud, sir, and it's just the emotion of the moment. I didn't realize Ariadne could be capable of such a thing. It was a bit of a shock to me. But her haven, or wherever her billing goes to, there has to be a paper trail from the Opera House, this new Club Omega, wherever she takes up in the projects, where she just closed down, the animal shelter. I don't know where everything is, but I mean, if we can get all of that information together, I know about Club Omega and the Opera House. Billing. All we have to do is find out where the bills go to. Eventually, we can find out what phone provider she had. Then, if we can get access to records one way or another, we can find out who she was trying to call maybe in the last 24 hours, or even get her call records going back.
It's a good plan. I doubt it will lead anywhere, but we have very little else to go on. Mr. Miles, do you have any suggestions?
Nothing comes to mind. My servers are at your disposal, and Mr. Brehon's, of course.
Mr. Miles, I would like you to follow this up. Go to Miss Quinn's apartment, check the phone records. You may liaise with Mr. Brehon about the financial matters. He has more dealings with it than I suspect you do. You may enlist the help of the Toreador if you feel their ineptitude won't rub off on you. Try and find out what you can. Mr. Brehon, you may consume this, but I know you have many projects at the moment. So simply being a financial advisor might be more suited for this task. But I leave it to your discretion.
I agree. Sid, call me if you really need me. But otherwise, email or call me for anything quick. If you should need help of any of the other Harpies, though, I could maybe arrange for one of them to come to your aid.
I'll consult Chloe on it. I know you're very busy.
Good.
My ghoul, Mr. Book, should give you access to the opera's financial records. It was once owned by my predecessor, Mr. Aronson, and then transferred via will to Miss Ariadne Quinn. I suspect we will still have the records in there somewhere unless she changed it dramatically.
We'll begin immediately, my prince.
Excellent. Mr. Brehon, if you and the Harpies can try and mitigate the damage from the kind world for this little incident, I would be appreciative.
Of course.
Try and find out anyone with media influence, try and spin this as we have said it, and make sure that no reporters start sniffing around too hard. The city is too weak at the moment to deal with a masquerade breach. We need to cover this up fast and swiftly.
Of course.
Now I have a lot to do, gentlemen. You may leave.
With that, Laird gets up and opens the door for Sid to leave first.
Where's the prince's ghoul?
Jeffrey. Jeffrey will be just outside if you wish to speak to him.
Sid will dismiss himself and immediately go to Jeffrey and exchange some formality, saying the name escaped him very briefly. But I know.
Right, sir.
I need a favor real quick. I need a bag of blood. I'm afraid my Primogen is going to become awake here soon, and he's not going to have a drink, and I'm afraid it will greatly damage everyone if he hasn't. I mean, I'm happy to pay, of course.
Very good, sir. I could have a case delivered to an address.
Sid pulls out a little notepad and quickly writes down the address to his Chinese restaurant.
Obviously, it doesn't matter the quality of the blood, I take it.
No, it'll be fine. Anything you got.
I'll send you the bill.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Been a great help.
Laird leaves the room shortly after Sid. but he politely bows to the prince. He doesn't say a word, though. He leaves him to his thoughts, closing the door behind him.
The prince does nothing. He puts his head in his hands and runs them through his hair. Incompetents and fools. I am surrounded by incompetents and fools. And we'll end the scene.